Hi, I'm Trish from Speedwell. In this clip, we see how a simulated patient enters a remote OSCE exam with a candidate and one examiner present. There'll be instructions, including an image, for the simulated patient to read. The patient enters the exam early and reads their instructions. When the examiner joins, they can see and talk to each other with their webcams and mics. Once the candidate joins, the patient and the candidate use the interactive image to explore the pain issues. They both mark the image and see the updated image at the same time. The examiner watches the interaction and marks the candidate. At the end of the station, the simulated patient remains with the examiner whilst the candidate moves on to the next station. The patient and examiner wait for the next candidate to join. The simulated patient will need to browse to the sign-in screen using the URL and sign-in details they've received from their organisation. The unique username and password go here. The exam's delivery screen loads when they sign in, and their user details and sign-out options are showing in the top right over here. This exam screen shows that there's one exam ready to enter. The simulated patient should already have run the remote OSCE computer check. There's a separate clip for that. Each exam is dated and timed, and the patient can check the details here and go back to their exams. The patient enters the exam using this button. At the top left, the patient can change the screen options here. As the patient has entered the exam early, they'll need to wait for the exam to start. Here at the top left, we can see the timer. This exam timer will count down to the start of the exam, then count down through any allocated candidate reading time, then count down through the remaining station time. For the next station, it will count down through any station waiting time, any reading time, the remaining station time, and so on until the exam's finished. On the right, we have exam and station details, and below those, the webcam panels, with the patient webcam showing at the bottom. The simulated patient reads their customised instructions whilst they're waiting for the exam to start. They've also been shown the image, which they can zoom in on like this for a closer look. At the end of the exam, the simulated patient will leave the exam using this button on the bottom left. On the right, they can click the Help button to load and use an on-screen chat facility. They can type messages to the exam's administrator in here, and answered messages will also show here. Patients can mute their mics like this, turn off their webcams like this, and use alternative mics or cameras if they have any available using this Settings button. The examiner is joining now. Their webcam is positioned at the top. And this patient and examiner can now see and talk to each other. When it's time for the exam to start, the first station reading time begins, as we can see here. When reading time's over, the station starts. The candidate joins automatically and their webcam repositions at the top, with simulated patient now showing at the bottom next to the examiner webcam. The station has begun, and after this examiner introduces the station, the simulated patient and candidate can start their conversation whilst the examiner marks. If a floating examiner joins the station to observe, an icon shows at the bottom, like this. The observer can't be seen or heard, but can see and hear everyone else. The icon disappears once the observer has moved out of the station. During this station, the candidate would like to share the image with the simulated patient and wants the patient to use the image to clarify symptoms. The candidate shares the image by placing their marker on the image. Here is an example of what the candidate and simulated patient see on their respective screens. The candidate screen shows on the left. They begin by placing their C marker to share the image. The simulated patient screen here on the right shows a simulated patient placing their own SP markers. Both candidate and simulated patient can see and interact with exactly the same screen at the same time, placing their own markers, C for candidate, SP for simulated patient. They can both see all markers. Back to our exam, and this candidate has clicked on the image. We can see the C marker. The simulated patient adjusts the image to their preference, and they can then place their SP markers when asked to by the candidate to clarify the details. And both the candidate and simulated patient see and use the same image, which is simultaneously updated. This simultaneous screen sharing and interaction is very useful for detailing and clarifying discussion points. OSCE stations can contain multiple shared images which can be used by candidates, simulated patients, and examiners too. When the patient and candidate have finished this discussion, the image can be closed by the patient, and the patient and candidate continue with the rest of the station. This station is nearly finished. As the timer counts down, the candidate ends the discussion with the patient. The candidate is moved automatically to the next station. The simulated patient webcam is now showing at the bottom, with the examiner webcam at the top. Before the next station there is waiting time, and then some reading time. When any allocated waiting and reading times are finished, the next candidate will join. The webcams will reposition, and the station will begin again. Once the last candidate has finished at the station, the timer will show an exam finished notification, and the simulated patient can leave using the leave button here at the bottom. This will take them back to the exam screen. Once they've finished their OSCE exam sessions, they'll need to sign out at the top right.